we only have one online participant, so maybe we'll cancel that. So Anne-Sophie, that's the audio voice I just sent you. So I'm sorry for that. We will see us next week in Berlin. Actually, I'll invite you to a couple of beers instead, because I owe you that for sure. And without further ado, look, we can give it a start. Anne-Sophie knows this quite well, so I hope. Okay, I'd like to. We have 1.5 hours more or less. I'll try to shorten it up a little bit, or we'll try to shorten that a little bit. First, I'll give a little bit of an introduction on the European project, EMPLC, and then we'll dig into land stewardship, contracts, and as well lease contracts with my colleagues, my colleague Annabelle and Joan Bonds from Insta, who has helped us with conceptual analysis in this regard. But before that, I'd like to connect with some of the dots that we have heard before, like, for example, ecological justice or ecological justice transition. We'll go to the local reality here in Catalonia of that, and what our NGO is doing in that regards. We have heard environmental conflicts. That's what lots of our members actually are dealing with day to day, and we as well as an organization try to make political advocacy for that. We have had a talk on ESAs. You'll now dig into another concept, which is stewardship. So lots of different concepts to protect nature. And we have had talks on criminal and regulatory law. And now that will be somehow complemented with a civil law perspective. And without further ado, I now really start. Okay, a little bit more about the project, which I'm involved in. It's a live project, started in 2020. We'll finish already next year. The main objective of it is basically that nature conservation NGOs and landowners come together in order to, well, get better along, to say somehow, no? In order to protect nature and, of course, adapt ourselves to climate change. For that, one of the biggest achievements in that sense is that this conservation of landowner coalitions, you can see there, has been established at the beginning of the project, which is basically that the two networks, ELCN for the NGO side and ELO for the landowner side, came together. And based on that, we want to gain knowledge and how to implement private land conservation across Europe. Okay, within the project, we are 18 partners, which is quite a lot for a European project. And Carolina, who's the coordinator of it, is suffering it in that sense. And we are 11 member states, and there's an equal representation of landowners and NGOs within that, that consortium. These are some of the colleagues that are working in the project, and a visit back here to Montserrat. If you haven't been there and you're spending a few days more here, in case you're from outside, I highly recommend going there. Actually, one of our members is implementing the nature conservation projects like fire prevention. Now a little bit more to us, the ICCN, which is one of the 18 partners in that. We basically are second level NGO association, meaning that we have organizations as members from different sectors. And we work basically interface between local and regional actors, but as well international, as example, this project shows. It was created in 2003 as ICCT, Land Stewardship Association, and declared as public utility in 2006. And then we merged with the Volunteering Association in Catalonia in 2019. And since then, we have now already, in Catalonia, we are 6 million people. And within that, we have 160 member organizations, not individuals, organizations, which is quite a large number. And what is our goal? Basically, to protect nature and achieve an ecological just ecological transition, and we try to promote that through two tools, speaking very roughly, land stewardship, and on the other side, environmental volunteering. Of course, there are a lot of other things. I'll only scratch a little bit on the few things that we are doing. If you want to know more about us, You simply have to go to icn.cat and there's all the information you need. Stewardship is quite a big thing in Catalonia. Later on, Joan and Annabelle will talk more about it. So now I'll only give the numbers of it. So 74 of these member organizations we have develop over 800 initiatives of land stewardship in Catalonia. That's quite a lot. That's more than 40,000 hectares. And of that, 10% more or less is agricultural, 60% is forested areas, and the rest is mainly river sites or then you have as well some marine sites. And the map basically depicts the red places. You can most likely you can't really see where it is, but it shows somehow that 70% of the area is within Natura 2000 site or protected areas. So we contribute to those objectives, not ourselves, but our member organizations. I talked to you already before about volunteering. That's one of the big parts of ICN. We try to improve the quality of citizen participation within our member associations. We have a big, well, actually now it's the Nature's Week to say somehow, and that within that we promote more than 500 volunteering activities across Catalonia from not only our member organizations, but all civil society and as well private or public organizations that want to join to like this movement. And we have all year round, of course, as well a web page where all these activities are constantly updated of what's happening that week. Besides of that, we try to advise citizenship, companies and public administration and provide guidelines, resources, trainings for volunteering organizations, NGOs that have volunteering within their objectives. Another step, the third big part of ICN is that we try to channel not only through this web portal, but as well private or philanthropic funding to diverge that to the NGOs. So they are doing conservation or restoration actions, and we try to source money so that they can better implement their actions. We don't only do that this way, but as well we create consortiums and so on in order to move forward with conservation projects. We do lots of more things, but I want to talk a little bit more about the European project. So I only presented ourselves until now and gave you a very rough definition of the project. But here you see basically that the project is very much aligned with what we are doing ourselves. So the project tries to improve civic engagement across Europe for nature conservation on private land, raise awareness on that, and then implement tools. That's what we will talk about in a few minutes. And as well, somehow try to understand better how funding sources can be gained for these private conservation actions. And finally, knowledge generation around all that, for conservation and climate change adaptation. And conservation tools, basically, Joan has helped us out a lot with a conceptual analysis, which has analyzed 6 tools which are used across Europe in order to promote private land conservation. In order somehow to find a common language across that, because you have the same concept in different countries, but each of us understands something slightly different. And the idea was somehow to get a general overview of that. And without further ado, I hand over to Joan, who will go a little bit deeper into that.
Okay, thank you, Matthias. Hello to everybody. I am Joan. I am an environmental law consultant. So I am very pleased to be here to explain what we did with this project with the ICN. First of all, we did this conceptual analysis based on different experiences around Europe according to the EU policies. And knowing each of all the conservation agreements existing in the EU countries. So for this this report, there was two aims: to first of all to identify these shared traits and cluster conservation agreements, and the second one was to create some definitions of conservation agreements that are applicable to all EU countries. So the main objective of this report were to identify similarities and differences between this kind of conservation agreements, to define some new common definitions for all of these agreements, to focus on the typical aspects of the instruments and aim to work as far as possible towards kind of harmonization in the EU level, and try to find a common language. So in this website, you can find different fact sheets of each conservation instrument, like land stewardship, conservation easements, conservation leases, privately protected areas, result-based payment schemes, and temporary nature. So today I will talk about two of these instruments. First of all, land stewardship. Land stewardship is probably one of the most common instruments, in fact, here in Catalonia. So we can define land stewardship like strategies and instruments through which land owners and land users engage with each other to conserve nature in this property, in the property of the landowner. So it usually comes like a voluntary, contractual, or informal agreement between the landowner and public or private association. In this case, landowners and land stewardship entities or organization can be like public institutions or private, and their actions not only take place on land but also in fluvial and marine ecosystems. So next one, which are the key facts, the key characteristics of land stewardships? As I said, the contracting parties are the landowner and the public or private non-profit or organization or another kind of conservation association. As I said, it is a voluntary instrument on both sides, from verbal agreements up to written contracts, as later on Annabel will explain to you. For example, in Catalonia we have a specific civil law for this kind of agreements. The destination of these agreements, the main objective of these agreements is conservation purpose, of course. And one of the important things is the land rights always stays with the owners. We are not transferring the land rights, okay? And the duration is temporal and variable from, I don't know, from 2 years, 5 years to 50, okay? And the duration, so it is negotiated between the parties. One of the examples that we provide in this report is this case study on land stewardship in Italy. In this case, the aim was to restore and enhance segments of the riparian strips along beach network and part of the windbreaker systems of the Pontine Plain to improve the biodiversity of the area. So in this case, there was 4 land stewardship contracts with four private farms and and the province of Latina. So it is a public entity, okay? And in this case, each farm accepts to manage according these shared rules, the green infrastructure and ecological corridor financed by these life projects. Here you can find some pictures in the next 2 slides, some pictures of these projects. Okay, and the second instrument that I want to explain to you this day is the conservation leases. It is also defined like a voluntary tool, usually used by nature conservation organization and private land owners too, to ensure, in this case, that land use of a property is compatible with nature conservation objective. So this lease may include all the property or only a part for a particular use, such as farming or forestry. In this case, the leaseholder gains the use rights, and in consequence, the lease is a form of management transfer agreement. Okay, this is a big difference, like in the other instrument. In many cases, it involves economic transitions, and it's rule and implemented by public or private or organizations. So, which are the key aspects of these conservation leases? The land lease is regulated in this case by civil law. It's voluntary too. The land rights stays with the owners, but the management of it is transferred to the leaseholder in this case. The duration is also variable, and it could be negotiated between the parties, and compensation is provided through rent payments. And one of the examples that we study in this report is one example in Germany with a project implemented by NEBU, the National Natural Heritage Foundation. In this case, these NGOs provide recommendations to private landowners on integrating conservation aspects in lease contracts with farmers for the implementation of nature-friendly management of meadows, pastures, and arable fields. And in this case, it was very interesting because a team of consultants helps landowners to choose the best conservation measures suitable for each case, for each land. So, Annabelle.
Thank you very much, Joan. Hello, good afternoon. My name is Annabelle Cepas, and I'm an environmental legal advisor at ICN. And during the next minutes, we are going to make a brief review of the framework of the land stewardship contracts in Spain and especially in Catalonia. Okay, it is in 2007 that it is approved the main legal body of the land stewardship in Spain, and it is with the law of natural heritage and biodiversity. This law established the basic legal framework to the conservation of the natural heritage and biodiversity in Spain. It includes for the first time the concept of land stewardship for the first time, but although it is a minimal regulation, it is very significant because it is the first time that we construct a legal concept that reflects all the previous social activities that have been developed in the society, and this activity is the first time that is incorporated to the legal body in Spain is with the law. In that law, we find two very important definitions that on the one hand is the land stewardship. that is defined as a set of strategies or legal techniques through which landowners and land users are involved into the conservation and use of natural and valued resources. We can see that it is an excessively wide definition that leaves open many important formal questions. But this definition is complemented with the definition of land stewardship entity. And it is very important, this definition, because land stewardship entity is one of the mandatory parts of the agreement. And the key points of that entity must be that this entity, as Joan has said before, can be private or public, and but it's very important to be a non-profit organization, and its objective must be concluding land stewardship agreements. So, and another important point of that law is that there is a clearly promotion of land stewardship by public administration, because it makes a call to public administration to promote this land stewardship. So, in consequence, with that article in the law, we have, it provides a legal justification of any intervention and activity of public administration in relation with land stewardship. And what it means also is that it extends the land stewardship framework to a large part of the regulation of public administration. For example, the law of legal regime of the public sector, or the heritage of the public administration, etc. This is the most important points of the legal body in Spain. But starting from that, starting from this basic regulation, some autonomous community in Catalonia have developed this regulation, and we can find that Catalonia nowadays have one of the most advanced regulations in land stewardship in all Spain. And furthermore, the government of Catalonia have developed specific programs and financial support to land stewardship. So we can say that the first approach to land stewardship was included in property law, because it was with approval on 2006 of the 5th book of the Civil Code of Catalonia related to real rights, that in the section of rights of partial use, it was included the real right with conservation purpose. And it was defined as a right established in favor of a person over another's property for conservation purpose. And it's important to underline that this is the closest figure that we have in Spain to the American conservation easements. In that point, I want to highlight that when we think in conservation nature, we normally used to think in tools from public law, criminal law, but here it is a case of how property law can be an important entry point to conservation. And the second legal body that regulates in Catalonia the land stewardship contracts is the 6th book of the Civil Code of Catalonia relating to obligation and contracts. And here we find a new contractual figure, that is the land stewardship contract. And I will do a very few summaries of the main features of that legal figure. That is, first of all, the lack of regulation of the content of the contract, and what it means in practical terms, that here it operates the principle of freedom of agreements, so typical from the civil contract law for contracts. And the second feature is the double nature of the right, because it is a personal right that runs with the landowner, but this personal right we can convert into a real right if we register this contract in the public register. So it will run with the property, and it gives a more more legal security with this kind of contract. And at the end, as we are under a system of Roman law, the perpetuity is not allowed. So we have temporal duration with that contract with a maximum term of 99 years. And finally, I want to point out two more references, very important reference to the land stewardship in the regulation. In one side, it is in the law of the Nature Agency of Catalonia, because this is a new public agency that will bring together the protection, the planning, the study, and the management of the natural heritage in Catalonia. It is scheduled to be operational on January 2025. And this law, in this law, it is regulated that one of the functions of the Nature Agency will be the promotion of land stewardship, and it enables to this agency to advise and conclude conservation agreements. And so the last tool that I want to remark is one example of this support from the government of Catalonia to promote the land stewardship. And it is the imminent approval of a decree for the creation of a register of properties with initiatives for the conservation of natural heritage and biodiversity. This will be a public register to private properties where private landowners can register their properties if they are carrying out in them conservation initiatives through land stewardship agreements or a management plan. So it is a very important step because it opens the door to the future establishment of a system of subsidies, grants or tax benefits, and it will encourage, we hope, that more landowners will carry on with these so necessary conservation activities in their properties. So, before bringing this presentation to an end, I want to mention that on the website of the ICN, you can find some learning resources as this training that we did last month about how to prepare land stewardship contract and public land stewardship contracts. If you are interested on, it could be very useful. And in this section, you can find too some contract templates that we have prepared from the ICN to provide example and to give a template to make a good contract, a stewardship contract, and with some explanations to people who want to make a land stewardship contract and have never done it before. Before concluding, I want to say that at ICN we are at your disposal if you have any question or you need any advice about any question about land stewardship. And now I give place again to Matthias because he's going to prepare a case study.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, mentioning as well that some of this information will be as well available in English on the website of the European project, and sorry for so much advertisement. Okay, since I have the power of the mic, if there are some very quick questions to the presentations, because otherwise we'll start moving tables and go to a different kind of topic. So if there's any, like a very quick question. Okay, are there more? Just to know how many there are. If it's only one, then we are good. Okay, and let's go with that quick question, and then we move tables.
Annabelle, I appreciated very much when you made your presentation and you made a comparison with the American system. In the case of the American system, there is this possibility of shifting, for example, if you are going to build up a mall in a place that should be preserved as a wetland, you can change this land by creating a stewardship project. And so it was interesting just to see that it might go in this direction. And the other thing is we have been considering the new proposal on the law of the European Union on restoration, and it recovers part of the greening of the agricultural policy, establishing the obligation for farmers to dedicate at least 4% of their lands to ecologic projects. And again, my question, because you made very attractive the idea of creating this land stewardship to get subsidies and helps and everything. Will it be possible to apply your project to other places in Spain in order to comply with the restoration law regulation that I hope is going to be adopted by the European Union? Thank you.
Matthias he will answer your first question better than me.
Yeah, for the European restoration law, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, of course, it will be able to contribute to those objectives. Actually, not only the tool of land stewardship, but all of the tools that we presented here, all these tools basically would contribute to those objectives. Actually, it's more than clear, and even the European Union mentioned it to us, and like the monitors of the project, that private land conservation will be necessary, because for 2030 they have made this fancy word of protecting 30% of land by 2030. Why 30%? No, it's nice, but why 30? Seems more like a slogan. But these tools will be necessary for that. And of course, the longer you can protect nature, the better. But of course, landowners sometimes may as well be reluctant to have long-term conservation actions on their land, because it could decrease their land value. And I don't know, when you want to do something else in the future or sell it, what happens then to that land? No, that's like one of the tricky points. But these tools can, it's basically like a toolbox, no? And you have to look what is sweet spot for each region. Here in Spain, stewardship is quite like common, no? But in Germany, it's conservation leases, which works out best. And in the US, because of how, no, it's a whole different world, it's easements that's working out best since long time ago. And the other tools, I'd say, well, priority protected areas, Italy has a whole bunch. WWF in Italy has lots of protected areas. And result-based payment schemes is something which is still on the move. Temporary nature is basically only in the Netherlands and Belgium, I think. So very concrete. And I don't think I left out anyone. So that's a bit the reality, but the idea is that to helping out, like creating this framework will help to move toward that. But it's, yeah, slowly.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. Okay, then if there are no further questions, we'd move to the part where you would have to work a little bit. Basically, I'll give you a quick introduction on what it will be about before we start moving things, okay? I need a little bit of your brain. So it's like a very, very rough adaptation of how a negotiation and a stewardship contract more or less looks like, for half an hour game, more or less, okay? So basically what we want you to do is to come up with one land stewardship agreement based on one case study, which is the one that you have in front of you, this paper. So you'll basically have to answer 6 questions, okay? These questions are on the 3rd page. There are like some boxes in it, okay? This will be the questions you will have to answer. Okay, okay, and before we, okay, now you have that, you know that you have to answer these questions, and the idea is that you have 6 characters, so 6 different persons, personas, to say somehow, which are the ones on the second and the third page. So you have the Bonaire farm, you have the cooperative crunchy bread, so on and so forth, okay? Each one has some objectives and a little bit of a description. Don't read it now, listen to me first, please. I need that when you sit together in groups of 6, one of you is the representative that comes then, like make a little roundup at the end if we have time, and you basically tell me then what is the agreement you came up with. That's the representative. And basically that's it. At the beginning of the first page, you have like a little bit of a story. And my idea was to read it out, but we have already had a lot of, we are way over time, but I'll go quickly through it. So simply that you situate yourself and then we move the tables, okay? Okay, so basically you have to situate yourself in such a way that you consider that you have heard or read in the news or on Twitter or Instagram, whatever you prefer, that the Montagus Harrier populations is decreasing here in Catalonia. The main reason for it is its habitat loss. We are actually in the village of Bonaire. It's a place with a quite big population of the Montagus Harrier. Actually, it's the second biggest around the world and the biggest in Spain. That's why researchers and as well ornithologists like to visit Bonaire quite a lot. That's as well why the inhabitants of Bonaire have decided to create an environmental NGO, DNA we have called it. Basically tries to protect the flora, the fauna, so on and so forth. No, it does campaigns, and it collaborates with the Universitat de Barcelona or the Universitat of Tarragona in order to protect the Montagus Harrier. I should have been smarter and put Universitat de Tarragona here. Okay, and actually the research, but you don't have ecology group, right? No, okay, then it's fine because the research group has found nesting sites of that bird, and that's important within the farm, okay? The farm owner, Bonaire Farm, we have called it, cultivates cereals. It sells those cereals on a cooperative crunchy bread. And the cereals, of course, are essential for that. And it makes like its famous product, which is actually its name, no? Crunchy bread. And the council organizes each year a fair for the crunchy bread. Next to the farmland as well, there are already the houses. You have to imagine yourself, you're in a village, you have a farmland, and next to it, you have houses. And one of those houses is a restaurant. Recently opened, has a swimming pool, you have the birds there. And basically, they're quite fond of the bird because it helps to diversify their activity so that people don't come only in summer, but as well in spring and autumn, which is quite nice for them. On top of that, there's as well a restaurant. That restaurant is eager as well to sustain like the traditional products of the area. And finally, we of course needed an antagonist to all these people. We have the motorcycle club, which is around there. Of course, the restaurant and hotel uses that as an activity for the guests. And I stopped reading, as you can see. But basically, they have lots of activity and they give life to this village, which is quite remote. And the last actor is an organization which tries to promote tourism in the area because they saw that there's lots of potential for it. And they would like to maybe buy some property or move into the village, at least to make like a pilot study on integrating conservation and tourism in the area. Okay. With that, I have told you a bit the story of these characters and the bird. You can see it here on the web, the village and the NGO, and so on and so forth. And before we start moving, the last part is try to think. These are not the questions you have to answer, but the problems that your character has, the propositions you can make to help him, how you can ask or help others out, whom you would more likely to collaborate with, and the objective again, try to reach an agreement. And without further ado, these are the questions I mentioned, and without further ado, let's move in groups of 6, and then you can simply take one of the characters, and the objective is, as I said, try to answer the 6 questions based on an agreement between you.